I can see some folks joining now. Thank you very much for jumping on early. If someone can just post a message or give me the thumbs up so you can hear. Awesome, perfect. Thanks, Mark. Great to see you. Just let a few folks join and then we'll dive straight into it. We'll have a pretty prompt start. We've got a lot to get through. Super exciting content and guests as normal. And while we wait, just a reminder that feel free to ask any questions or any comments throughout the live stream. They all get collected up, and then I'll be able to put them to the co-hosts when we get to the Q&A part of it. So don't hold back if there's anything that you've had on your mind. Obviously, can't wait to see the presentation, but also, feel free to comment. It'd be great. Okay, welcome. Thanks everyone for joining in live, and those that are watching the pre-recorded version, thank you for watching it. So we've got a busy, packed agenda. We've got additional hosts to normal, very similar format to what we've done previously with the live Q&A. It's a very informal, but we've got a lot of content to get through. Feel free to ask questions throughout. I'll try and put those questions to the other co-hosts during the Q&A. This session, unlike previous ones, is specifically about a new technology company called Capture. And with that, I will bring in our other co-hosts. So please welcome joining Johannes and Craig. Okay, hopefully that's all working. There we go. Johannes, can you hear us?
We can hear you perfectly fine. Can you hear me?
Awesome, you're loud and clear. Thanks for joining. And Craig, welcome as well. So, Johannes, tell us about Capture. You're the co-founder. Where did Capture start?
Yeah, sounds good. Super happy to. Yes, my name is Johannes. I'm one of the co-founders of Capture Energy. And Capture is an energy technology company that we started in London last year. And we've been working with a lot of owners of Fox batteries to optimize those batteries and their charging and discharging. And I'm sure we'll get into those bits in a bit, but we've been super excited about the hardware that Fox has been releasing over the last years, but also over the last few months. And actually, kind of decided to announce this partnership more formally this week, which is also why we're having this live stream today. It's been great working with you, Craig, Justin at Fox, right? And we just think this can deliver a lot of additional value to existing as well as new Fox systems out there.
Absolutely. No, and I suppose the biggest benefit right now is being able to live stream. We've just opened the doors on the self-service sign-up process. So if you are watching this, there'll also be some links in the live stream description. But you are able now, right now, as of this broadcast going live, able to sign up completely self-serve and connect your Fox account to the Capture app. And then you can start receiving the benefits that we're going to get into during this broadcast straight away, which is exciting. I did it several times just before the broadcast. The experience is really slick. So the team have done a fantastic job on
Thank
making
you.
that onboarding. Really worked well. Awesome. And we've got Craig. Craig, tell us a little bit about how you got to know Capture and what you see from a Fox perspective with the relationship and the partnership. Oh, you might be
It's all
muted.
happened very quickly. I think, as Johannes will attest to. So I think it was our MD Justin that I think first met you in China, Johannes, I believe, and I think you took a tour of the factory, and I think you were, as anybody that goes to our factory was very impressed with what you saw. And then following that, obviously the link was made here. And obviously the developers got in contact, and this has happened. I mean, as you're aware, at Fox we have quite an open door policy in terms of integrations, published API, and we are quite responsive. We met with the team at Capture. We were very impressed with what they were looking to achieve. A lot of dynamism, and we thought, yeah, this is something we can work with, and very quickly. Quicker than any other integration that I can recall. This has got from that point, not that long ago, to the announcement this week. So it's all been very quick, but all very positive. Again, we're happy to be working with them.
Yeah, much appreciated, right? And I can also only give that back, right? I think we feel very confident in partnering with Fox, right? We're very excited about this. I mean, having seen the factory as well as other factories in China, very confident in the product as well as the product roadmap, but then also just the team, right, that we work with. It's just something that we haven't seen from other manufacturers. And at the end of the day, I think we believe we can, together build an amazing product for the Fox community here in the UK.
And maybe if you dig into that, Johannes, so what about Fox attracted you to consider them as part of the, who you want to integrate with?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's multiple things. I think firstly, it's really been, almost like a wake up call on this trip to China that we did earlier this year, visiting multiple manufacturers and their factories, right? And it was actually on that visit that Justin, on this picture, unveiled the Fox Evo to us. And I mean, we were just super impressed with the quality, the scale of the factory, also the speed at which Fox is moving at, right? And then also just the pure product pipeline, right? And kind of this interest in building amazing products together in the future. I think that's kind of the first thing, right? Like kind of this wake up call on the China trip that we had. But then I think the second big reason is just that Fox is, one of the most advanced battery manufacturers on the API side of things that we've worked with, right? We've tested quite a few APIs at this point and found that actually none of them work, as well as Fox. And Fox has really been, I would say, leading in this battery segment on the technical side as well. And that's why I think both on the commercial side, right, and also the technical side, we felt very confident in embarking on this partnership with Fox, and ultimately announcing it this week after a month a couple of months actually of beta testing this with people from your community, Will, and announcing it this week and also launching the self-service onboarding for everyone.
It's awesome. And those that have been a Fox customer for a period of time, you'll know how far Fox have come both in hardware and also software. And I had the honor of dining with Johannes and Craig yesterday, and it was really interesting to hear about the fact that Fox is really pivoting to a technology, a software company as much as they are hardware people, pumping out rock solid inverters, battery technology. But look at the previous Q&As that we've done with Craig in the past. Look at those feature requests, and now look at where we are today. There is a very high proportion of all the asks that the community put forward to Craig actually gets implemented, and specifically with the investment that Fox have made around the open API perspective, where now we've got these integrators. Now we can leverage as both an installer and a customer of Fox. I can leverage third parties that I can stack on top of my existing energy supplier to really give myself another opportunity to earn and put my system to work. And what really stood out to me as someone that's used a number of different tools, right from the very enthusiast level type of technology like Home Assistant and directly integrating with the inverter and building my own kind kind of plans and maps and schedules, really stood out is just the ease of use right now in being able to self-service and to have all of that intelligence and the scheduling creation be handled by the capture software. So for me, even as someone that's pretty technical, that's been in this ecosphere for a while, and also like I'm a bit of a control freak. I do like to have all of my schedule. I like to fully understand what's going on. But the way that it comes across in the app, that initial bit, so I'm really pleased that we could connect and that we've got this opportunity to be part of your launch, but also to get that first look at the demo, and also talk a little bit more about who are Capture, where they come from, what's the where's the technology come from. The UK-based team I met yesterday, phenomenal group. If you're on the Facebook group, you'll see we even had a Fox battery as a cake. So they're not just great at technology; they can also bake, right, Yannis?
Well, shout out to Ewan, who took the time and effort and skill to bake that cake. We're still eating from it today.
Absolutely. So let's go back a little bit. So what was the sort of instigator of Capture? Tell us a bit more about yourself, Yannis.
Yeah, happy to. I mean, we started last year and initially, also sold batteries ourselves and had partners install them. But what we found is that actually most batteries just remain underutilized, right? Typically, batteries just operate in self-use mode. They charge from solar. When there's surplus solar, they discharge to load later. But especially in, the winter months, most of those batteries could actually deliver so much more value just by charging from the grid at off-peak times on the right tariffs, and then discharging at peak times either to the load or to the grid to earn export revenues. And kind of that is the very first simple step, right? Where we saw that, hey, there's so much value in just scheduling these batteries correctly. The second, step is a little bit more advanced, but it's really about enrolling those batteries in various electricity and flexibility markets, right? And those are markets that are typically not accessible to the home battery owner themselves, but through companies like Capture that aggregate a pool of batteries, we can tap into those markets and, fundamentally charge when electricity is cheap. They discharge again when it's expensive, or when, for example, some of the electricity network operators need us to discharge to stabilize the grid. And maybe this is also kind of a good segue into what Capture does tangibly for our users, right? I think that the first bit that we've worked quite hard on is actually forecasting the solar generation for the following day, as well as the consumption for any customer, right? Because based on that, we can tell how much does this battery need to charge from the grid versus from the solar during the day, right? And I think it's a very fundamental decision that lots of people actually still do manually, who are quite switched on, have their own solar forecast, and then schedule the battery accordingly. But we thought, hey, there must be a simpler way. We must be able to automate this, and so we did. The second thing is then really what we just call buy low, sell high, right? I think Octopus Flux is a great example here, right? Where we might charge the battery overnight at an off-peak rate for, let's say, 15 pence a kilowatt hour. And then we discharge that electricity later during the day at those peak rates of up to 30 pence per kilowatt hour. And we have customers who, pocket those export revenues and effectively don't pay anything for electricity at the end of the day. And then I think this last bit is really about kind of the third part is really about, utilizing those batteries to stabilize the grid, but obviously also get paid for it. And currently this is still, not accessible to every user on the Capture platform, but it's more, in specific local zones where the distribution network operators require, batteries, behind the meter batteries to help stabilize the grid. That's where users can tap into those payments and already get paid for it. But every user that onboards to Capture runs through a check for eligibility, and we can very simply tell you, hey, you're eligible or not. And I think that the one other thing to say there is that actually there's a lot more markets to go into. And I know the team is working very hard on it to bring us into those markets and make sure Capture users earn more in those markets.
So that's a good point, actually. So we've got a global community, not only on the Facebook group, but also on the forum.
Yeah.
So where's a Capture customer today? Eligibility.
Capture customer today is anywhere in the UK, right? We are fully focused on the UK, and that's also where we're going to be for the next few years at least.
Awesome. Well, there's more than enough inverters and battery devices in the UK. Plus, we have our own unique energy. Almost, we have a microclimate when it comes to our energy crisis. The amount that we import with the interlinks to other European countries as well. So it's everything's condensed down and kind of amplified in the UK when it comes to what it takes to operate a national network like our national grid we have.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, we believe that there's still so much work to do here, right? That's why we don't think about international expansion at this point. Fully focused on making our users in the UK happy.
Awesome. So should we dig straight into the proof of the pudding and show the audience exactly what Capture is about from an app perspective?
Sounds good. Let's do it. Then, I mean, I did pre-record 2 kind of sets of screen recordings to be able to share them here on this tour. Let me just bring those up. And those are, 2 of our users who we've been working with closely, who volunteered to have their system on here ultimately. Obviously anonymized the address, but let me just walk you through what we do for those users. In this case, this customer has a Fox battery. I think it's 10 kilowatt hours, a 6 kilowatt inverter, 9 kilowatt peak of solar panels. I think fairly standard to what most users have in the community. And in terms of tariff, he's actually on a interesting combination of Agile, Octopus for import, and Flux for export. I haven't seen it that many times, but they seem to be benefiting from it. And Capture actually works with any electricity tariff out there. So whatever tariff users enter into the Capture app, we can optimize against. And I mean, just to show you what this means more specifically, we found a day where Agile rates were a little bit more interesting, and they actually went down to 0 on that day. And that is, exactly when we charge the batteries. We know that from the solar forecast, there's going to be some generation during the day where the battery will top up from the surplus solar. But we do know that we need to charge something from the grid, and we do that at exactly the cheapest times, as you can see here. So we charge from the grid, top up from the solar panels. Basically, SOC battery is full in the afternoon, and then what we do at exactly that time is to discharge the battery, both to, just zoom ahead, both to the load and to the grid. And as you can see, those grid discharges are perfectly timed with those peak export prices. On the tariff, in this case, the customer earned almost £2 on that day just from exporting, while also satisfying their consumption from the battery. And I mean, what does that ultimately lead to, right? I think we have these 2 key figures that we kind of, recommend our customers to look out for. One is the capture price, which describes the effective electricity price at which that each kilowatt hour your household consume cost you. In this case, that is at almost minus 5 pence per kilowatt hour, meaning this customer got paid 5 pence for each kilowatt hour that they consumed on this day. And there's quite a few customers who have a capture price that's very close to 0 or even negative, meaning they're not paying for electricity again. The second figure is just the absolute savings. This is just showing you how much you saved using Capture on that given day, week, or month. And I think there's a slightly more exciting system that I have in petto. Give me 1 second. Let me just bring that up. So this customer is on an Octopus Flux import and Flux export tariff. I think fairly standard, and they've activated smart import and smart export from Capture, right? Meaning we import at the cheapest times, we export when it makes sense at the most expensive times. They have also activated what we call the grid rewards. And this is what I mentioned earlier. Not everyone's eligible yet. Some of our customers are. And in those cases, we can enroll that customer's battery in those local flexibility markets where the distribution network operator pays batteries in a specific area to be available to discharge, but then also discharge at times when the grid is strained fundamentally. And we'll go into that in a bit, but maybe I'll just show you what the battery does on a day-to-day basis. In this case, again, we run that solar forecast overnight. We know there's some solar generation coming in, but we know that we don't need to fully top up the battery from the grid. So we still charge it at the off-peak rate. And then you can see it charges a little bit from solar during the day. And later that day, we then use the electricity in the battery to, again, discharge to the home and discharge to the grid at exactly those peak prices, right? And this customer typically makes somewhere in between £2 and £3 per day on those export revenues. And that is the one side of things, right? Kind of this first stream of savings that the customer sees on their electricity bill effectively. The second kind of stream of savings that we deliver for our customers is what we call those grid rewards, right? And in this case, the customer has been getting paid almost £2 per day on their battery system just for being available, right? This is a payment that comes from the distribution network operator who reward batteries that can be called upon in cases of emergency where they need the grid to be stabilized at the local level. And I mean, in this customer's case, it's a very profitable contract that we managed to enroll them in. But over the last, I think, few months, they've accrued a balance of £76, right? And this is not some fictional currency. This is something that they can withdraw into their bank account from the Capture wallet.
Wow. So this is on top of, they've got their energy supply at Octopus, and then kind of articulating as the layer, the intelligence layer, and this kind of extra benefit that you can stack on top. And it's not just Octopus, like you say, you support. When I signed up myself on the app, I can see all of the energy providers, all of the tariffs on there.
Yes.
You can even set up, I saw the option to set up, your custom tariff if you do somehow manage to find some nuance, co-op energy company that you've never heard of. But this is a layer on top of what you already get from Octopus that you're in control. And this customer here in this example, where you've been managing the system and they've, they benefit to make a small marginal benefit on something like an Octopus Flux is quite difficult when you take into account the investment, the battery. We'll get into all of that kind of thing. But how much effort has this customer? How many times they have to keep an eye on it and tweak it to give this type of result?
I know this customer actually very well because we've been talking to him for feedback conversations throughout the process of building Capture. So he's been super helpful. But I know that he's very hands-off in terms of managing what the battery does. He goes into the Capture app once in a while to see what it's doing, how much it's saving, and then also to withdraw from the wallet. But other than that, he's very hands-off, and all of this is, I would say, very automated in the background.
Wow! So you've taken care of to deliver those examples. They just sign up, connect Capture to their Octopus, their Fox account.
Yes.
Like I say, through the same onboarding experience that we went through earlier, and then as part of that onboarding, they're ready to go, and then you start to immediately start trying to put their asset to use.
Yeah, exactly. They're ready to go. And, once we find that there's an opportunity for their asset to participate in one of those markets, they can enroll their battery separately by switching on those grid rewards in the settings that I showed you. And
then you handle all of that communication between these grid operators and the battery asset. You handle all the administration and the automation there.
Exactly. We handle all of that, and also full transparency, that's where a lot of our work is going at the moment. I mean, we've completed the Fox integration, but actually we're heads down working on integration with those markets. As I said, there's various with different opportunities, and we're very focused on building those out.
And if you're just a regular person that occasionally maybe you opt into a free electricity or a savings session that it's pretty popular with Octopus, and there are equivalents for all of them. What you're showing in terms of that next level, that's not necessarily something that any normal user has access to. Is that right?
No, this is, I mean, there's certain minimum entry requirements for these markets, right? You need a certain capacity of battery storage that, that's required basically to sign up and then also trade in those markets. And the typical home battery is just too small, which is why, there's certain, minimum entry requirements. Once you've met those, you can actually start trading in the electricity markets. And
right. So
sometimes that's as low as 10 kilowatts. There's other markets where it's as much as 100 kilowatt. But we actually don't want our users to worry about this, but actually, sign up their battery and then just start benefiting from it.
So when someone signs up and they're registered with Capture, and you're managing a fleet of battery assets, when you're able to engage with those grid operators, you represent the pool. Is that right? As one mass, not each individual asset.
That's right. I mean, we maintain the relationship with the individual asset, right, through the connection and also through the relationship with the homeowner or the battery owner. But then obviously we also have those relationships with network operators.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. And do you want to show some of the? I don't know if we've got it in the recording around. So a lot of questions that came to mind yesterday when we had a really great conversation was around things like, well, what about cycling the battery? How much control do I have around its cycling, its health, its degradation? Because a lot of people are quite protective of their asset because they're very expensive still. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, for sure. I don't have it in the recording, unfortunately, but you'll see it when you sign up for the Capture app. In the settings, first of all, battery health is super important for us, right? I think we think those batteries should be managed within the warranty restrictions of the manufacturers to maximize their lifetime. And I think what's key is there to, restrict two things, right? One is the maximum number of daily cycles that a customer wants to do. Typically, if you look at the warranties, that's around 1 cycle per day per system. We have some customers who want to go a little bit higher there, right? They say, hey, I've bought this asset. Maybe I have, consumption of 30 kilowatt hours a day, but only a 10 kilowatt hour battery. Then, they want to be able to charge that battery multiple times a day, for example, on Agile when prices are low. But most customers actually stay within 1 cycle per day because that's what also typically we recommend and set as a default. The second kind of setting that we've introduced is this virtual cost of battery degradation, right? I think everyone, has made an investment into a battery and knows how much they've paid and how many cycles or how much energy they plan to charge and discharge over that battery's lifetime. And from that, you can work out what the, virtual cost of cycling, charging and discharging each individual kilowatt hour of electricity is. And we typically, set this at 5p per kilowatt hour. That's the default we have in the app because we feel like this is a reasonable cost across those battery investments that we've seen. And what that ensures is that the optimization, Capture AI in the background, doesn't take any sort of arbitrage opportunity, but we make sure that it's actually worthwhile, the cost of degradation on that system, right? So you might see on some systems that have, for example, our Octopus Agile, right? And sometimes you can charge up for, let's say, 10 pence per kilowatt hour, and then a few hours later have the opportunity to discharge for 11 or 12 pence per kilowatt hour. If you set the cost of degradation at 5 pence per kilowatt hour, you wouldn't take that opportunity because the margin is not big enough, right? We have customers who set it to 0, who just want to trade the asset, which is fine, but most of our customers remain within those 5 pence per kilowatt hour. And I think those are the two settings that we've identified so far as being super important in giving battery owners the control over how we optimize the asset, right? Because I think this is ultimately what we want our users, to feel, right? You're always in control, right? It's from kind of activating the optimization itself, you can always activate or deactivate it, right? You're always fully in control. And then even at the level below, you can decide if you want to just import at the right times with Capture, if you want to export at the right times with Capture, or if you want to participate in the grid reward schemes. And then in terms of battery health, we have those two settings that I've just talked about. But we think it's actually key in building, trust, right? Because ultimately we do take control of those batteries. And I think as a part of that, we also we need to be very transparent in, how we optimize those batteries and giving people control of their battery. Does that answer the question, Will?
No, absolutely.
Maybe long answer.
Yeah, no, exactly that. And that's, when you're considering, you're an asset that you're enabling customers to be able to put an asset into a market, into a generation opportunity that they wouldn't typically be able to do on their own. So that's part of it. In addition to all of that intelligence around the solar with load, and also making sure that the customer doesn't run out of batteries. So it's kind of a little bit pointless to have a system that dumps power to the grid only to then run out of battery and be forced, because that really hurts, that day's return. I've not seen a system before that, as you say, takes into account the true kind of cost of when you set up a cost of degradation to use the battery. And so the figures you showed earlier on from those example customers, that's after taking into account the kind of cost of operating. Is that true?
So the cost of operating actually doesn't go into those savings figures, but it goes into the optimization of the system, right? Because the actual cost incurred, the customer incurred, right, when they bought the battery system, right? And we just use that virtual cost to decide when to charge and when to also then discharge a battery for arbitrage opportunities.
Awesome. And the advantage of being so now, partnered with Fox, knowing the hardware, getting intimate with the API, I'm sure you've got a list of all feature enhancements that everyone benefits from, and Fox have put a significant investment and effort into those enhancements. You see it moving forward all the time, and even the Fox Cloud, the desktop version, the version 2, I've noticed recently, Craig, is starting to, there's a little pop-up kind of starting to pull people into the newer version. Is it safe to say say the version 2 is now kind of starting to exit beta, and that for the desktop version at least, that people can start to use what was the V2 beta?
Yeah, so it's exited beta in effect, and so there is that migration across, and we're kind of pushing people that way. They will run side by side for a period of time, and that may be up to 12 months actually. So we're not pushing everybody to switch over. Unlike with the app, when we went version 1, version 2, obviously there was a release, and then there was quite a quick turning off of the version 1, or we were actively pushing people to the new app. So they will run side by side. You can use it now. There are some features that haven't migrated across yet that people will know. API key generation is one, and one or two others. But it's published. It's good to go. So for those that aren't using it, I would recommend that you give it a go, switch over. But as I've just said, there are some improvements and changes that are in the pipeline, which will coincide actually with a number of changes that we're going to release on the app itself. Some improvements, some of which are things that the community have asked for numerous times on our previous Q&A sessions. So they'll be pleased to know that me saying previously they're coming, they genuinely are this time, and we're not that far away from releasing those. So I can mention them later if you want me to. But version 2 of the Fox Cloud is live.
Brilliant. Yeah, and I know we're going to have another Q&A. Within the next couple of weeks, we're just pinning dates down. We'll talk specifically about some of those features that we've seen in community streams before. Now coming into the app, so that's super exciting. Craig, you lead the UK division. From a manufacturer's perspective, what's your view on Capture in terms of from a hardware perspective, from a warranty perspective? How have you made all of that work to enable Capture to utilize these residential systems without customers worrying about system warranty and things like that? Because a lot of people can be very sensitive to some of the terms, right? Yeah,
nothing's really changed from our perspective. The warranty is the warranty. The expected life, cycle life is as published. So really, that's something that is on Capture. and they've done it very well and very responsibly, because there is a temptation, of course, for people to overwork their batteries and get a bit giddy with all of the tariffs and overwork them, if you like. And the fact that Capture have built that in, it was very important. And as we said at the beginning, we were very impressed with it, with the platform, with what they were doing, and the fact that they'd considered that, and that is already part of the app itself, and that's a consideration at all in the first place is obviously quite impressive, because I'll be honest, I've seen other solutions that doesn't form part of it at all. And I think, it's difficult with cycle life and throughput and warranty, because we don't want to be too restrictive on that. People have made that investment. It's a substantial investment, and they should be free to use it how they want. We're obviously saying, and as you've stated already, Will, that they need to be aware of the consequences in terms of state of health if they are cycling multiple times per day. And we talk about a cycle per day. That cycle, one cycle per day, can be a number of partial cycles. So if you're using Agile and you're doing half-hour charge windows, that doesn't necessarily equate to a full cycle. So just to clarify that point, because a cycle can be made up of a number of partial cycles.
Yeah, there's a lot of transparency. We've seen with the Foxcloud version 2, especially on mobile, how state of health. I remember when it came out, and everyone suddenly, for the first time, you can now see the percentage of where you've gone, and it's been really interesting over the community to see. People have been comparing age with number of cycles, with environmental things like, well, mine are in the loft, mine are in the garage, mine are outside. Some people have been sort of babying the batteries, being really careful with the C rating and the charge and discharge. But from at a high level, observing it, the batteries are so tolerant. They're designed to go that full cycle. And actually, more recently, especially what's starting to come out initially in the Australian market with down to 0% state of charge, which is a kind of artificial flaw, but they've got built-in capacity to give the users that what feels like a broader range, right?
Don't mention that. Keep that out.
Well, yeah. When's it coming to the UK? I think.
Yeah. Let's gloss over that one.
So yeah, it makes sense that Capture's being mindful of the actual cost of using the battery asset and helping customers make better choices. But I'm super impressed by the amount of visibility that you've been able to display in the app, Johannes. With so not only can you see what's going on in the Fox app, but you can also track and you're leveraging all that data from the Foxcloud API enhancement that Craig's been championing within.
That's been instrumental, right, to making this work, right? With kind of the release of OAuth, we were just able to build a significantly smoother onboarding flow, for example, right, which previously still required users to retrieve their API key on the Foxcloud, but now you can actually just log in to Capture without doing that. And there's numerous other improvements that we've seen over the last few weeks and months, really, which make a product like ours possible.
Absolutely. And we spoke yesterday, brainstormed a few ideas as well with Craig, and potentially in the future, where when you do enroll your Fox asset with a third-party management provider like Capture, that you've still got visibility in Fox, but it will show you that it's managed, and certain settings will kind of be grayed out to you can obviously always disable and revoke that management access, but you can also visually you can see in the Fox app that this is a managed asset. And those that have seen what Tesla did with the Tesla Energy Plan, where if you enrolled your Tesla Powerwall into the Tesla Energy Plan that was served by Octopus, certain settings were disabled from the end user because you're giving that control to Octopus in this case. But with Capture and with this idea that where you can manage and maximize within the parameters that you're very transparently allowing the customer to configure, you can kind of stop them from stepping and sort of fighting with the configuration that's trying to be built. How much data goes into the forecasting side going forward in terms of the solar and the house load, and how often is it right versus it wrong?
Okay, this is a super interesting topic, right? Because I think there's quite a big difference between those two forecasts, right? I think solar forecasts are a well understood problem. I think that, where we are also very confident in the forecast that we make, both at kind of the total aggregate level. So to say, hey, tomorrow your system is going to generate 10 kilowatt hours, but even within 30-minute periods, how much the PV plant is going to generate. And we do that based on the one hand, the configurations of your solar plant, which we get from the Fox API. It's typically a kilowatt peak figure, as well as just historic generation data that we use to train our forecasting model and just give you more and more accurate forecasts over time. The process for consumption is not so different, but consumption is just, especially at the household level, very random, right? And we've done a couple of experiments at forecasting household consumption, but also, let's say, industrial businesses consumption. And we've seen that, on the industrial side, loads are typically a little bit less random, and you can actually forecast them. Versus on the household side, it's, in terms of the daily total, it's, fairly accurate, saying again, tomorrow you're gonna consume 20 kilowatt hours in total. It's very difficult though to understand, hey, which 30-minute period will you, let's say, turn the kettle on and have your cup of tea in the morning, right? So those things are still challenging, but I think overall the forecasts are doing a good enough job at this point. And one of the features we are bringing into the app over the next few weeks is just to get your input into those consumption forecasts, right? If you know that, hey, on Sunday, I'll have a big roast, family will be over, oven will be on for 3-4 hours, you can tell us, right? And you can tell us between noon and 4 p.m., you expect to have very high levels of consumption, and we'll take that into account in our optimization. So that being said, I think solar forecasts overall, very good, very strong. I think consumption also already very strong, better at the daily total consumption forecast than at predicting individual 30-minute periods.
And I suppose we've been talking about capture now on the forum for a little bit, and I've been keeping an eye on what type of queries are coming through. And thanks everyone for sending your comments through so far and your questions. We'll put them to Johannes and Craig very soon. I want to make sure we allow enough time for that. But one of the kind of things that, being an owner and kind of maybe giving up a little bit of control, some people are worried about, well, how easy is it for me to be able to turn the capture intelligence off, maybe but briefly, but also what does kind of disabling, revoking it look like as well? Because it's very easy to sign up, but if I want to turn it off for a day, a week, if it's working for me, if it's not working, what's the kind of rollback look like?
Yeah, it's super simple. You deactivate the smart optimization in the app. That's one toggle to flick. And then if you want to actually delete your account, you can also just click delete account in the settings, and that's done, right? But I think what's most important is that if you want to take back control, right, you can basically anytime flip that toggle, right? You're back in control. And from then we will no longer send any charge or discharge requests to the battery. I think one of the use cases that we've seen over the last few weeks, and I also saw a comment in the chat, is the Octopus free saver sessions. Those happen, once every couple of months. And there was a particular weekend where quite a few users wanted to take control back of their charging to make sure we capitalize on those charges, because currently we don't know, or Capture's optimization doesn't know about those yet. And how that works as of 2 weeks ago is if you switch off the control, you can schedule those forced charges and, for example, the Fox app, charge at those times and then switch back on the control after. What we're working on in the future is making sure that, we actually know about those electricity saver sessions, and we make sure that the battery capitalizes on that cheap or even free electricity.
But you can turn on Capture's optimization and off kind of on a minute by minute basis without a penalty. It's not like, because some of these systems, if you have to turn it on, wait multiple weeks for it to kind of build up a a usage habit, and then when you turn it off, you're kind of stuck then for again. You reset. You have to go through another several week kind of onboard of data. But you could decide, well, tomorrow lunchtime I'm just going to turn it off because I have a specific thing going on.
Yes, yeah, it's exactly that simple, right? And also when it comes to joining us, right? Obviously, our forecasts get better over time, but there's no ramp up time, right? You switch on Capture tonight, you'll see it force discharging your battery overnight, and you're good to go, right? It's
we actually saw that so when I signed my system up, and I was surprised that pretty much within 2 minutes, it had already populated those grids of the data, because it was already figured out, hey, I need to do a charge now whilst there's a cheaper period. And you've got a nice overview of you're recreating the plant view with the house and the solar panels, the grid, the battery, so you can also keep an eye on what it is. Do you have insight into what's coming up ahead? Do you see the schedule that's being built?
So this is a very interesting one, because that's coming next week. We're currently building this feature where we actually want to, basically share the foundation on which we make those decisions, right? And a lot of users have actually asked us for, the solar forecast, for example, right? Because currently they go in 2 different apps to see those forecasts, and then also the upcoming agile prices. And we want to bring that together, tell one coherent story, right? Tomorrow, you're not going to be generating that much from your solar panels, but we expect a high level of consumption, which is why we plan to charge the battery overnight. And we do that at exactly the cheapest times on whatever tariff you're on. So that's actually still in the making, but it's coming next week.
That wasn't even rehearsed either. The benefit of me using the app as well is I have these same questions. What's going on with the data? Where is the data? How is it playing ball with the hardware, but also with Fox? And it's really great to see, Fox, encourage partnerships like this, especially ones that really are delivering an additional benefit. And I know that from conversations we had yesterday, we were talking about how we can leverage installers. So if you are an installer watching this as well, reach out to the Capture team. They'll help you understand how you can not only help a customer to navigate things like tariffs. That's often a big question I get when I'm installing a system is, well, now I've got my battery and solar system, how can I maximize at a tariff level? But then how can I have something like this, an optimization level at this time where it can really maximize my system. If you're watching, and you can put your phone at the screen with the camera, and you'll be able to download the app, or you can search the App Store for Capture Energy and get onboarded. And all you need is your Fox login details, so your username and password. You can go through that really slick onboarding. If you have any reservations about those details, you can also generate the API key from the version 1 platform and input that as well. It gives you a bit of control if you want to revoke the key. But yeah, it should all work. Should we dive into some of the questions? We've got some really great questions coming through. Cool. Let me grab the first one. No particular order, I suppose, but I'm just trying to pick out the ones that I think will being asked by the most number of people. So I do appreciate everyone asking the questions. Keep asking them. We'll try and rapid fire through them in the last kind of 15 minutes. What's this one? So we've got Garth asking, was it suitable on a battery only installation with no solar?
100%. Right. I mean, we see exactly the same value is accessible for battery only installations, right? Still making the most out of your battery, making sure it discharges at the right times, and is also enrolled into those other electricity markets. We at Capture are actually very big believers of battery only installations, right? When we still sold batteries last year, right? Just to understand how all these processes, installation, permissions, etc. work, we found that actually some of our customers couldn't install solar panels, for example, right? They were in a conservation area, the roof was too small, they didn't like the looks of the panels, whatever it may be. But a lot of them actually then went ahead and installed batteries, right? Some as small as 10 kilowatt hours, others as big as 50, 60 kilowatt hours. But yeah, we're very confident on those battery only installations, and see that they can get equally as much value.
Yeah, it seems to be a number of people asking the same question. So Ivan's also asked the same question about it. So yeah, if you have a battery only, no solar, you can definitely utilize capture and be able to utilize that battery asset. I've got another question from Mark about he's on a fixed tariff, not a flexible one like Octopus, and he's charged a fixed charge and export rate. Does joining capture gain me anything in this scenario?
Very good question. I mean, in terms of the charging schedule itself, it's fairly simple, right? On your tariff, you'll probably just charge up the battery to 100% overnight and then export any surplus solar during the day. What we've seen though is that there's, I mean, for a lot of our users, there's actually then extra value in those grid rewards. Would love to check for you, Mark, if there's any extra value that we can deliver for you, and if there is, I'm sure there's a lot you can gain from capture. The second thing that I would highlight here, despite next to the grid rewards, is actually just the user interface. We also have some users who aren't exactly your tariff combination, and use capture to still do the charging and discharging of your system, but also just visualize the data in a very beautiful and pleasing way.
Awesome. Got a question about how capture is linking to Octopus. If it does directly, will it pick up Intelligent Go slots that get given kind of dynamically?
So yeah, we integrate with Octopus via API, but it's the public API for the tariffs. So we always have the most up-to-date tariff rates from Octopus. Even when the price cap is updated, and we have new tariff rates for certain tariffs, we know about that. So there's no need to constantly update us about the exact rates on your tariff. When it comes to Intelligent Go, currently we charge within that kind of standard time period. I think it's 11:30 p.m. to 5:30 a.m., something like that. We charge the battery during those times. When it comes to those extra sessions, we currently don't know. We don't know about those sessions yet. We don't integrate with your personal Octopus account, but that's something we plan on doing in the future. I mean, either direct integration into your Octopus account or the ability to manually enter extra free sessions that you get on Intelligent Go or on those free saver sessions.
Awesome. Looks like this user is already using capture. It's worked well for about a month. However, in the last week, with expensive agile rates, it's failing to charge the battery and seeing using grid during peak times. Like an anonymous, like what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's two things happening this week. I think on the one hand, agile prices are higher, right? I think last week we still had cases of near zero agile prices overnight. That's no longer the case this week. So it generally makes, increases the cost you'll have of electricity. The second thing that's happened is that temperatures have gotten a lot colder. And one of the things that we observe is that some systems don't have the self-heating features yet. And this means that with the colder temperatures, the actual rate at which the system charges drops by quite a bit. So, happy to look into the exact system here and why that's kind of why we haven't been charging enough. But that's some of the systems this week have just not charged enough because there was this drop in actual charge rates due to the temperature.
Yeah, that's a good question. And if you think this is affecting you, have a look on the Facebook page. I posted a video earlier on about how to properly configure the battery warming feature based on some feedback that Craig gave me yesterday. I think there's a lot of people are confusing the times with the start and end temperatures and things like that. So hopefully that video gets a lot of folks' batteries, backed up to that more comfortable level, and they're seeing the performance. Are you utilizing or I don't think the heater is an API yet from Fox, is it?
No.
I don't think so. I'm not sure, but I haven't seen it.
One thing actually we've noticed actually, and it's come to light this week, given the fall in temperatures, is a lot of people who have the heating function haven't actually activated it. We don't enable it by default. We prefer to say it's a user control function. It's optional. But we are seeing cases of people that assumed it was active but hadn't actually turned it on. So I think your video, I did see. I mean, we did a similar one, but the one you've done today is very thorough. I would suggest people watch that and turn it on for sure if you have it. If there's any cases where, the case I think the example just given there, we're happy to look at those cases individually as well. So you can reach out obviously to Johannes or ourselves if you feel that the behaviour isn't quite what you'd expect. Then we can take a look at that just to make sure everything's in order.
And just quickly, what models are supporting the heater today? It's the EP range and some of the EQs, right?
Yeah, the full EP range, EQ 4300s, EQ 2900s, EVOs, and the Power Cube obviously utilises the EQ range of batteries. So the only battery within the range at the moment doesn't support it is the EQ 4800. So just be mindful of that. But everything else is pretty much universally supported.
Awesome. Got a question from Aaron about, is it still worth me joining if I have a smaller battery? For example, I have a 8.29 kilowatt hour battery and 8.5 kilowatt hours of panels.
100%, right? I think, it's the battery size that matters, but it's also the inverter size that matters. But I do think that even with, smaller, rather small systems like yours, we see that there's, upside, for example, in winter to still charge that battery at the right times, at the off-peak times, right? And then also make sure the export that you do have, that goes to the grid at the right times. For example, if you're on flux, to make sure that you export at those peak rates.
And that's part of
and to be honest, also we have seen significantly smaller systems join capture. I mean, some I think were even 3 or 5 kilowatt hours. So significantly smaller than yours, and those users have also seen upside.
And that's part of the comment earlier on about how capture is pooling these assets together. So you as an individual that's joining capture, you may be bringing a smaller battery, but in this case a very large array, considering it from averages, but your battery is pooled with all these other thousands of assets, and that's what capture you're presenting as a capability that you can offer the grid. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Neat. Let's see if we've got any others. There's a question, I know we touched on it loosely, but Ben's got a question around how sophisticated the forecasting is for both house demand and solar generation.
I would say, we're probably at the cutting edge here, right? I think, especially with, the solar forecasts, right, are super strong already. And I think in terms of the consumption forecast, we've seen that actually when it comes to forecasting load or consumption at the household level, there's not so much work that has been done. I think there's also not that many out-of-the-box solutions in this space, which is why I believe that it is a hard problem to solve. But I think in terms of the solution we have, we're actually at the cutting edge of it. I'm not sure if you're technical, Ben, but if you are, feel free to get in touch. We're actually looking for people to help us improve some of those forecasts and also other things on the engineering side. So in case you're technical and a forecasting expert, would love to have a chat.
I suppose that's the point. You do have support. So I've noticed in the app, in the top corner on every page, is the little sort of support headset icon. People, once they sign up with Capture, if they have questions or want to query anything, you do have, you're a small team, but you do provide support, right?
Exactly. We provide support. There's both support via the phone and email. So if you do have any questions, there will always be someone to respond. And we're more than happy to respond to those questions. I feel like with almost every question, there's still something for us to learn, and we do feel like we're not just building this product here in our office in London, but we're actually building this together with our users. So if you decide to join Capture at some point, you might also if you have some feedback, be invited to join us for a quick call to give some feedback on the product so that we can find out how we can make Capture even better in the future.
Awesome. Got a question from Dave. It's got 3 EP12, nice system, good sized battery, but it's struggling to meet his needs with low PV this time of year. How will Capture help?
Yeah, I think very much depends on the tariff that you're on, right? I assume you have already some sort of tariff that has an off-peak rate. In those cases, right, we make sure we charge at the cheapest times on that tariff, right? And make sure that, large parts of your consumption are covered from the batteries. Second thing is, again, grid rewards, right? Would love to check if you're eligible for some of these markets and then see if there's any extra revenues and savings that we can bring for your system.
Just noticed Dave also asked about, I suppose, you being in the industry, kind of with EON/and export rates, those to follow. Where do you see it going?
I mean, I think it's somewhat expected, right? I think a lot of these export tariffs of 15, 16 pence at all time per kilowatt hour at all times of the day are just loss leaders for the big energy companies. Funnily enough, we did an analysis last year and found that actually it's completely unsustainable. The wholesale prices at which the suppliers can actually sell that electricity back to the market at those times has been significantly lower than the rate that they offer us as consumers, meaning they're heavily subsidizing these rates. And that's why, funnily enough, we made a YouTube video last summer, forecasting the end of tariffs like, Octopus outgoing that gives you those 15 pence per kilowatt hour. So I do think, some of those tariffs will end over the foreseeable future. And I think what will become more important is just making sure you export at the right times when the grid and the electricity markets actually need your system to export. Yeah. And I think, in terms of the shape of a tariff, I think it's going to look more like an Octopus Flux or an Octopus Agile that follows the wholesale prices directly.
Yeah, the market's going to be really interesting. We've got EV sales booming. We've got battery assets becoming, quite popular as well, and lots of solar being installed. And I forgot the numbers from last night. Too many pale ales in, but there's X number of assets a day going online. It's just huge growth. It will probably turn to be versus at the moment we've got these large on peak, off peak. Those Australian viewers where you sometimes have 4 or 5 different kind of tariff timings over a day. You're incentivized to consume and store as much energy as possible and export and try to not export during where there's surplus demand and things like that. I can see the UK market. I mean, we're one of the best smart meter enabled countries now, from what I understand, across Europe. So we've got all the technology starting to come about. Just to summarize then, so you've heard a little bit about Capture, how it's that kind of optimization layer right now that goes on top of everything that you've got that exists. It's easy to join, it's easy to get it connected, it's easy to pause, suspend and leave. Really, it's very there's not everyone's got something to gain in most cases. I'd be interested in, even if you think you haven't got something to gain, be interested to see if you sign up and what benefits you get and surprise yourself or not, and pass that feedback back to the Capture Energy team. They'd be really interested to see what systems perform well, what systems might be part of that niche where actually you're already optimized as much as you can be, and with the shifting of tariffs that's going to happen in the future. Again, the best path right now is to go to the App Store and download the app and go through that experience. You do have a website, but that's more for information. Then there's no dashboard on the website. Is that right?
There's no dashboard on the website. We currently have these mobile apps, and if you download the app, go through the self-service onboarding. If you have any questions, just drop us an email, give us a call. We're very happy to help.
Awesome. I appreciate both your time on this Friday evening to go through the app. Super exciting. I'm going to be checking it daily while I see how my system beds in. Really appreciate all the collaboration. I think it's such a great opportunity for folks that may not even do any management of their asset. There are a number of people I've seen out there who just leave their system in self-use mode. It charges from the sun. They use that. They self-use that solar. So to be able to, in a simple way, even if you're not into technology, as long as you know your Fox login details. And I suppose that's the point, Craig. Is there anything you want to point out around if people don't know their details, if they've had it logged into their app for years, is there a simple process of getting access to their account again?
It depends. I mean, we did allow signups without an email address for a while, and that made password retrieval quite difficult. In that scenario, you just need to reach out to us through the service line. provide us with your serial number, and we can do a remote password reset for you back to a default password that enables you to gain access. So yeah, these inquiries do come through. Another one we get is obviously systems bound to a particular installer or agent. That's not something that we can directly control, because ultimately it's in the end user's control who has access to their system. It's very important from sort of protecting data and things like that. So if you have a situation whereby you want to change the installer or the agent that's bound to your account, because maybe your original installer is going out of business and you're using another installer to manage your system and service it, you need to reach out to us via email. We need to have that authority in writing. So yeah, there are ways of achieving that, but it typically involves contacting ourselves. I think going forward with the app, we will make it compulsory to register an email address at the point of registration, so you've always got that password retrieval option. We will be looking to introduce MFA at some point next year as well. So 2FA, MFA. The exact details on that I don't have yet, but it's on the roadmap to release at some point next year.
Awesome, that's great to hear. Yeah, and it's great that you're able to, the system serial from the the original owner. You've got mechanisms of being able to get them back in, because I have seen examples where people were signed in once upon a time and didn't write it down. So if you're one of those people that fears logging out or can't log back in, the Fox team are there to help you. Great. Well, thank you again, both of you, for your time. Look forward to seeing examples. And please, if you're on the community and you're using Capture, or you've signed up and you're, let's trade results, right? Let's put some pressure on Capture to earn its keep. Johannes has talked a good game. The technology is phenomenal. They've got a great team. I can attest after meeting them yesterday. So let's hold them. Let's see what we can do with our assets and see if we can make a bit of difference for the UK grid. Thanks, everyone.
We're up for the challenge. Thanks a lot, Will.